All right, sales and revenue leaders, if you want to really level up your sales team, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into 15 steps to build a high-performing sales team, to find those nuggets of wisdom that you can use right away. To help guide us through this, we've got Nova, an expert at building those sales teams that just crush their targets.
Glad to be here.
So this article starts off by acknowledging just how much the sales landscape has changed, right? It's not all about gut feelings and cold calling anymore. It's about using data and AI and automation to get ahead of the game. I mean, it's almost like we've gone from using swords to having these like high-tech weapons. So Nova, what do you think about this whole shift?
Oh, it's a game changer. Totally. Think about it. We used to just rely on intuition and we had very few data points. Now, with tools like CRM systems and sales automation software, we have a ton of customer insights. And you can use those insights to inform your entire strategy. And it's not about like replacing human intuition. It's more like giving it a boost with data-driven intelligence.
Yeah, that's right. And the article mentions some specific tools like Salesforce, HubSpot, and ZoomInfo. And, those aren't just buzzwords. They're powerful platforms that can really change how sales teams operate. But I think for our listeners, they're already familiar with these tools. I think the real question is how to use them to actually make a difference. So what's one takeaway our listeners can implement this week?
That's a great question. Here's a specific example. You can use your CRM to like segment customers based on how engaged they are. Let's say you find a segment of, high-value customers who haven't really interacted with your brand in a while. Well, you could set up these automated email sequences to re-engage them. You could offer them personalized offers or even valuable content based on what they bought in the past. And that kind of targeted outreach, all powered by data, can really boost your conversion rates.
That's a really great tip. Now, the article also emphasizes the importance of building a positive sales culture. Things like recognition, transparency, and creating a supportive environment for people to develop professionally. And I know those can sometimes sound like, fluffy HR concepts, but they're actually really critical for building a high-performing team.
I completely agree. When you create a culture where people feel valued and supported and empowered to grow, they're more likely to be engaged and productive. And ultimately, they'll be more successful.
Exactly. So what's one specific strategy leaders can use to build that positive and supportive environment? What could they implement, say, this week?
I'd recommend starting a peer-to-peer learning program. Pair up your experienced reps with newer team members and have them share knowledge and best practices. This not only helps new hires learn faster, but it also builds a sense of camaraderie and shared success.
I love that idea. Creating a culture of collaboration and continuous learning where everyone is invested in each other's growth. That's really powerful. Now, the article also talks about learning from your top performers, those sales superstars who consistently exceed their targets and bring in the big wins. So what's their secret? How can we decode their success and share those insights with the whole team?
It's all about analyzing their techniques and strategies, but not just superficially.
Mm.
Let's say you have a top closer who always crushes their quota. You don't want to just watch their sales calls. Go deeper. Shadow them for a full week. Pay attention to how they qualify leads, what questions they ask, how they handle objections, their closing techniques, and then, document those best practices and create training materials that you can share with the whole team.
That's a fantastic strategy. It's almost like taking a master class in sales from your own top performers.
Yeah, exactly. You're essentially cloning their winning formula and making it available to everyone.
So we've talked about the power of data, technology, building a positive culture, and learning from the best. But let's get even more specific. The article outlines 15 steps to building a high-performing sales team. Now, we can't cover all 15 today, but let's dive into a few of them in more detail. So where should we start?
Let's start with setting clear expectations and metrics. This is step one in the article, and it's super important. You can't just tell your team, go sell. You need to give them like a roadmap and a compass.
Right. It's like sending them on a treasure hunt without a map. They might be talented and motivated, but they'll just be wandering around.
Exactly. So how do we create that roadmap? Well, it starts with setting really clear sales goals. What are you actually trying to achieve as a team? Do you want to increase revenue by 20%? Are you trying to expand into a new market? Whatever it is, those goals need to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. SMART goals.
Yeah. SMART goals. I think most of our listeners are familiar with that framework. But the challenge is putting it into practice. How do we translate those big goals into individual targets and metrics that actually encourage the right behaviors?
That's where KPIs come in, key performance indicators. These are the metrics that show you in real time how your team is doing. Things like sales quotas, conversion rates, average deal size, and customer acquisition cost.
Right. And that's where the data from those tools we talked about earlier, the CRMs and sales automation platforms, becomes so valuable because they can track all these KPIs automatically. And it gives you like a dashboard view of your team's performance.
Exactly. But it's not just about setting targets and tracking numbers, right? It's about using those insights to coach your team effectively. Which leads us to the next step in the article, regular feedback and coaching.
Okay, coaching. I think every sales leader knows coaching is important, but it often gets pushed aside. We get busy putting out fires, dealing with urgent issues, and just trying to stay on top of things. So how do we make coaching a consistent priority? And how do we make sure it's actually effective?
You're exactly right. It's about making it a habit, not just something you do every now and then. Block out time on your calendar for regular one-on-one coaching sessions with each member of your team. And these sessions shouldn't be about like micromanaging or just reviewing numbers. It's about really talking to them, understanding their challenges, helping them improve their skills, and giving them the support they need.
So it's about building those relationships and creating a culture of open communication and trust.
Exactly. And when it comes to giving feedback, remember fast. Frequent, accurate, specific, and timely. Don't wait for those quarterly reviews to give feedback. Give it often. Focus on specific behaviors and outcomes and be timely so the feedback is relevant and actionable.
Fast feedback. I love that. That's so much better than those awful annual performance reviews where they just throw everything at you all at once.
Exactly. And here's another tip. Make sure you give balanced feedback. Don't just focus on things they need to improve. Acknowledge their wins too, both big and small. Recognizing their accomplishments, even in small ways, can really boost morale and motivation.
That's a great point. Now, the article also talks about encouraging peer-to-peer learning and collaboration. And this is something I'm really passionate about. It's not about creating competition within the team. It's about, using the combined knowledge and experience of the group. So how do we create a culture where everyone is willing to share what they know and learn from each other?
Oh, there are tons of ways to do that. You could create mentorship programs where experienced reps are paired with newer ones. You can hold team workshops or brainstorming sessions where everyone can share ideas and best practices. You could even use online tools like Slack or Microsoft Teams to create spaces where they can connect, ask questions, and share insights.
Right. And don't forget about just celebrating wins as a team. When someone closes a big deal, share that with everyone. Recognize their hard work, talk about their strategies, and let everyone learn from their success.
Yeah, absolutely. Celebrating wins together creates a feeling of shared purpose, and it reinforces that you're all working towards the same goal.
So we've talked about setting clear expectations, providing coaching and feedback, and encouraging collaboration. But the sales world is constantly changing. What's hot today might be obsolete tomorrow. So how do we make sure our sales strategies stay ahead of the game?
That's where the next step in the article comes in, monitoring and adjusting your sales strategies.
Right. We can't just set things up and forget about them. What worked last year might not work this year. So how do we know when it's time to change things up? And what are some signs that our strategy needs a refresh?
You have to keep an eye on your KPIs. Are your conversion rates going down? Are your sales cycles getting longer? Are you losing deals to competitors? These are all signs that something might need to change.
And it's not just about the numbers. You need to talk to your sales team too. They're the ones working directly with customers. So they'll have valuable insights into what's working, what's not, and what needs to change.
Exactly. They're like your eyes and ears out there.
So be open to feedback. Be willing to experiment. And don't be afraid to adjust based on what you're learning.
It's all about constantly improving, right?
Yeah.
Being flexible and adaptable.
Absolutely. Speaking of learning, let's get back to something we talked about earlier. Learning from your top performers. We talked about shadowing them and writing down their best practices. Are there any other ways to get all that knowledge they have?
Definitely. You could set up mentorship programs where top performers work with those who are less experienced. This gives them direct knowledge and personalized guidance. You can also organize workshops or training sessions where top performers share their insights and techniques with the whole team.
That's a great way to make their impact bigger and share that knowledge throughout the company.
And don't forget about the power of storytelling. Encourage your top performers to share their success stories, how they closed a tough deal, how they overcame a difficult objection, how they built a strong relationship with a client. These stories aren't just inspiring, they also offer valuable lessons.
Stories are really powerful. They bring those lessons to life. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from setting clear expectations and metrics to providing coaching and feedback, fostering collaboration, and continuously adapting our strategies. But there's one more crucial thing that the article points out, and that's the importance of continuous learning and development.
Absolutely. This is about building a culture where learning is expected. It's about helping your team members stay ahead of the curve, learn new technologies, and constantly improve their skills.
It's about making learning part of your team's DNA.
Yeah. And it's not just about like formal training programs, it's about giving them access to lots of different resources,
Right.
online courses, conferences, books, podcasts, anything that keeps them curious and helps them grow.
I like that. Creating a learning ecosystem for your team. Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing from the article. I think it's really important. It's the idea of customized coaching. We've talked about coaching in general, but this takes it a step further. It's about realizing that every single person on your team is unique. They have their own strengths, weaknesses, and learning styles.
Right. You can't just use a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to understand the individual needs of each rep. What motivates them? What are their struggles? What do they need to really succeed?
And once you understand that, you can create coaching plans that are tailored to their goals and dreams.
Yeah. It's about meeting them where they are and helping them get to where they want to be.
This has been a really insightful conversation, Nova. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of these 15 steps.
Mhm.
But we've covered a lot of important stuff. So for our listeners, those sales and revenue leaders who want to take their teams to the next level, what's the one thing they should focus on this week? What can they do today to get started?
I'd say it all starts with being clear. Take some time this week to really figure out what your sales goals are. What does success look like for your team? What metrics will you use to track progress? Once you've figured that out, share it with your team. Make sure everyone understands the mission, the goals, and how their individual work contributes to the big picture.
That's such a great point. Clarity of purpose, clarity of goals, clarity of expectations. That's the foundation for building a truly high-performing sales team. And remember, listeners, you have that roadmap in the 15 Steps to Building a High-Performing Sales Team article. We've talked about some key takeaways today, but there's so much more to explore. So dive into that article, start putting those strategies into action, and watch your sales team succeed.
Nova, thank you so much for joining me today. Your insights have been incredibly valuable.
It was my pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in to The Deep Dive. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a topic that will help you grow your business. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep crushing it.